that will be Marita Noon. And Marita is the Executive Director for Energy Makes America Great and the companion education organization, the Citizens Alliance for Responsible Energy. Together, the two work to educate the public and influence policymakers regarding energy, its role in freedom, and the American way of life. Combining energy, news, politics, and the environment through public events, speaking engagements, and the media, these organizations' combined efforts have made Marita the America's voice for energy. She's also a columnist for townhall.com, a regular contributor to the Energy Tribune, Conservative Action Alerts, and the EPAAabuse.com, if I got that right, Marita. And her writings can be found in numerous newspapers and websites. So I don't want to take up any more time. Her vita goes on, but I'd like to bring her up, and we'll start today's tech sessions with Marita Noon. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm surprised to be speaking to a group like this at what's called a tech session, because those of you who know me and have heard me speak before, in fact, let me ask, how many of you have heard me speak before? I know Eddie David here has, a few of you have. You know that tech is really not my thing, especially when I'm in front of a group of geologists and a group of engineers, that I feel a little bit intimidated, because if I had a hunk of coal in my hand right now, I couldn't tell you whether it was brown coal or whether it was coking coal. But I could tell you what coal does for America. And I can't tell you how to drill a well, but I can tell you why we should be drilling a whole lot more of them in America. And I can't tell you how to split an atom, but I can tell you why nuclear power should be part of America's energy mix. And so I focus on kind of the intersection of energy, politics, and the economy. And let me just ask, so I see if we're all on the same page here today, because last night at the reception, as I talked to many of you, I was kind of interviewing you to find out what you wanted to hear from me this morning, and some of you were a little concerned that last night at the reception I didn't yet have my speech ready. But fear not, I got a speech, I've got a title, I've got the whole thing worked out. But let's just make sure we're all on the same page. How many of you for the last, let's say 4 years or so, have been frustrated with the energy policy in America? Okay, good. See, I thought I'd be on safe turf there, but I thought I ought to ask. Well, you know, let me tell you, energy policy in America is extremely important, and I've put my low-tech PowerPoint presentation on the chairs for you, and I hope you'll want to pick that up. And if you look at it, you look at the picture, not the picture of me, not the picture of my book, which is available for sale out in the hall. And I am feeling a very good vibe about this group, because I've already sold one book and I haven't spoken yet. So, but if you look at the dark picture here, can you see what that picture is? Those of you that have my little low-tech PowerPoint presentation in your hand? Korea. That is the Korean Peninsula. And what do you think I hope that you will notice about the Korean Peninsula? The answer's written there down below, just, you know. So the cheat sheet is there for you. What do you see that I hope you'll notice? Yes, you'll see that North Korea, which is a communist country, is how lit up is it? Not at all. It has one little bright spot at the capital city there, which I was told was Kim Jong-il's large screen television. But then you have South Korea, and South Korea is a free market, democratic, and developed country, and what do you see there? Bright lights. Now, where are we headed in America with the energy policy that was coming out of this administration, that's coming out of Washington? We're heading for the dark ages, truly. We are headed for the dark ages if we don't do something about it. And that's what my role is to do something about it, to try to educate the public to the role that energy plays in their life, so that hopefully, if they understand that, they make better choices when they vote. I accepted the role of executive director of these organizations about 6.5 years ago. And at that time, I truly knew almost nothing more than flipping the switch on the wall and putting gas in my car. That was my total knowledge of energy. So you can see why I might be slightly intimidated at a tech session in front of a bunch of geologists and engineers. But over the last 6.5 years, I've come to realize that my lack of deep knowledge, like I said, I have broad knowledge. I can tell you about a whole lot of subjects, but I can't go deep on those subjects, on energy-related things. But it's been an advantage because I understand what the public doesn't know. And I can communicate to the public in a way that they can receive and comprehend. I speak to a variety of industry groups such as this. Thursday I'll be speaking in Kentucky for the Kentucky Oil and Gas Association, and Saturday I'm speaking back in Albuquerque for the New Mexico Federated Republican Women's State Board meeting. So I speak to a variety of different groups, to any group that will listen on energy, because I believe so strongly that energy makes America great. And in fact, I've got bumper stickers out there on the table that are free for each one of you to take if you'd like, and I hope that I'll encourage you about the importance of energy in America, and that you'll want to put this bumper sticker on your car, even if you're not a bumper sticker kind of person, because this is a subtle way that we can all remind the public of the role that energy plays in our life. Now, one of the big problems we have in this country, energy-wise, as I said, is the policies coming out of this administration. And those policies are being driven by an extreme environmental agenda. I mean, the Keystone Pipeline is the perfect example of that. And I've said for many months that I don't think the Keystone Pipeline is going to be approved, although I'm feeling a little more optimistic on that at the moment. But what I want to specifically talk to you about today in the brief time that I have with you, and I've titled my little talk, for those of you who know last night I didn't know what I was going to say, I'm calling it Hip Hip Hooray, because I'm going to share with you 3 brief stories that you probably don't know about, at least based on my survey of the crowd last night, that I think you don't know about. And these are stories worth cheering about. And in a time in the history of America where there's so much bad news, especially on the energy front. Now, there are some good news things too, but don't you get frustrated when you hear the president out there touting how much more oil we're producing in this country than ever before, and you say to yourself, yes, but no thanks to you? Do you say that to the television when you hear him saying that? Yes, that is true, but it's due to private innovation. It's on private lands. It's no thanks to you, but there's some things that are happening, and I'm seeing, and I track this stuff every day. This is what I do. Every single day, I track the energy news and what's going on. And there's some good things that are happening. And today I'm just going to tell you 3 stories. And I hope that you've got my large business card, my oversized business card, because I believe in living large. But on there, it says on the bottom, read my energy issues column every Sunday on townhall.com. And the things that I'm going to be sharing with you are out of some of my current columns. And I hope that you'll make it a habit to check for my column on townhall.com on Sunday morning and pass it on to your friends, colleagues, family, and to help spread the good news. So the 3 stories I want to tell you about today is the first one, I'm going to tell you very briefly, but it's the foundation for the other stories, and that is climate change. You know, the battle for climate change is all but won for our side. You know, what's the biggest deal about climate change? That's the big news that I want to tell you. It hasn't changed. In 17 years, we have increasing CO2. And more, that message is getting out there. Dr. Puchari, or however you pronounce his name, who's the head of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change for the UN, himself has acknowledged that the warming has stalled, that it has not done what the models had predicted. The public is aware that the catastrophes that were predicted have not happened. The public is aware of that, and climate change is no longer something that the average person in the public cares about. And that's important for policy. I just read something yesterday that said that when they did dial testing, this was just released, when they did dial testing, you know what I'm talking about when I say dial testing? You're not a lot of Fox News watchers here, okay? Frank Luntz on Fox News, and other places do this too, but they take speeches and they have people in the audience with dials, and you dial up and down when you like and you dislike, okay? So they can, second by second, word by word, track what people like. And they usually do it based on Democrats and Republicans. They just released information about dial testing from the President's State of the Union address. Now, that was old. That was back in January. But when he talked about climate change, that we must do something on climate change, where did the dial testing go? Down. So when they say that the environmentalists are furious, which they are at the President, because he stood up there and said, we are going to do X, Y, and Z for climate change, and what has he done? Nothing. Although if you've watched the news, this is probably what I'm going to write on this weekend, he slipped in an increase in the carbon price in a unwatched microwave oven efficiency bill. He slipped in an increase on the price of carbon. So he's making a little small concession to the environmentalists. Okay, so climate change is kind of off the radar as the big issue. Now, that doesn't mean everybody in the whole world is signed on. Mark told me the Weather Channel's still screaming that. But Al Gore recently was mad at the scientists because they wouldn't let him connect the tornadoes to climate change. So, I mean, there's interesting news on that front. Well, based on the news on that front, the two other good stories, that's HIP. This is the next one, HIP, and the third one will be hooray. So hip, hip, hooray. We can cheer a little bit. How many of you know what the good news coming out of Europe is? Okay, see, I love this, because see, if all of you raised your hand and you knew, then you don't need me to be here. And then you know what? If all of you always knew this, then I don't need to do what I do for a living, because I track this stuff so that I can share it with you. In Europe, in April, I believe it was April 16th, the European Parliament voted not to prop up their failing cap-and-trade system. This is a big deal. This is a huge victory. The European Parliament, because I do a lot of radio interviews and people will call in and say, well, yes, but what about Germany? Germany's getting all their energy from wind and solar and so forth. And I say to them, have you paid attention to the news lately? Do you know what they're doing in Europe? Do you all know what they're doing in Europe?